Why did Mass EDMC happen? Um, I think the longer that's gone on, the more I've come slightly closer to answering that. I still think about it often. In the most fundamental of ways, on a personal level, I was searching for people that were like me. I was searching for people that had open minds about music, that liked electronic music, that liked dance music. I was searching for people to party with, on a personal level. On a greater level, I think Mass EDMC happened because, if not I, somebody was going to make it happen. Dance music as a whole was rising, and there was a need for it on campus, just exemplified by some of those first parties we did in houses where hundreds of kids showed up to listen to house music and party and dance and have a good time, before we even started doing club shows or real stuff. And, it just became apparent that there was a need for this music. And even if people didn't know that they needed this music has something very powerful in it that draws people towards it.
Don't look in the fire.
When I talk to people about electronic music and what it is, and I talk to somebody who has no idea what it is and no insight to it, I always start with what electronic music is the most empirical form. And essentially what electronic music is music that's produced through a computer that makes you dance.
If you look back, sort of electronic music has always kind of been popular, just not in the way that we've considered it.
In a lot of ways, it's a reemergence kind of this just natural celebration of life. Dance culture is something that's ingrained in civilization for as far back as it goes.
We talk about the significance of electronic music and what's going on here as a whole, this movement. What's the point? Why are we doing this?
My name is Will Saltis. I am from Newton, Mass. Born and raised there, and then I went to UMass Amherst.
I'm Laura. I went to UMass Amherst, and I've been involved with Mass EDMC as electric shepherdess for the past year and a half.
My name's Adam. My name's Adam Lederman. I identify with a few places as home. I was born in Northampton. My grandfather's a professor at Smith. My mom's from Northampton. But my dad's Israeli. So when I was 5, I moved to live in Israel. And so when I came back from Israel, I went to prep school for a little bit, and then I went to UMass Amherst for 4 years. And then after those 4 years, I kind of decompressed a little bit for another 2 there. So I spent a lot of time throughout my life in Western Mass as a whole. So I definitely identify with that area a lot. It's very, very grounding and quiet and green.
I first heard about Mass EDMC in an entrepreneurship class that I was in sophomore year at UMass. And this kid presented Mass EDMC as the business that he was pitching, and it blew me away. And I was like, "Whoa! This is perfect." And that kind of was it, and it was crazy because I think the day before, maybe this day of, I saw a flyer at the dining hall when I was getting food, and it was a Divas flyer for a Mass EDMC event, and it was just like techno, trance, house. And I was just like, yes, that sounds awesome. I don't know what this is. And I got introduced to Bobby and started hanging out with Bobby a lot, and that was kind of how I got started. Mass EDMC stands for Mass Electronic Dance Music Community, and it originally started as UMass EDMC, and slowly moved to mass EDMC. EDM in a lot of ways was the way to just describe the umbrella term to people. And we always say we don't even like saying EDM because it's electronic music. It is electronic music. That's how you refer to it. So like the acronym EDM was why we used it, because it was just the best way to describe the umbrella term.
I think if you look back, sort of electronic music has always kind of been popular, just not in the way that we've considered it. There was disco in the 70s, and then new wave in the 80s, which is essentially a synth. But I think right now, I mean, I'd like to say because it's awesome and everyone's finally understanding, but I think it's fun, and it's a community, and the people that you meet and the stage setups that you see is kind of special and unique, and they're stories you're going to tell for a long time. And I think that in times of economic distress, people look for a way out, and it's kind of been a little financially unstable for a lot of people that I know in this area. And I think that electronic music has really been kind of like I can go to this thing for $10 and it's going to be awesome, and I'm going to love it, and I'm going to meet tons of new people, and it doesn't matter that I'm living at home and I don't have any money and I still have student loans. The things that I do for Mass EDMC there's a lot of them. It's a range of duties. Mostly I'm editor-in-chief of the site. I run our site interns. I find new writers. I train our writers. I edit everything. I help them make creative decisions.
You go to a concert and you have such a great time at the concert. On your way out, you pick up a t-shirt, and that t-shirt is more than just a t-shirt of your favorite band. It's the experience that you just happen to have at that concert. Well, these hoodies in a sense are kind of like that. The people purchase them for whatever reason, but what Mass EDMC stands for is kind of what people are relating to. It's not so much the hoodies, it's not so much the designs, it's not so much that. For us and for me, it's it's fun, it's creative, it's another creative outlet, a medium that I get to express myself, or express ideas out of. But for the vast majority of people who purchase anything really, it must resonate some way, shape, or form in you. My name is Mike Tran, but I DJ as Voltran, and my passion is music. I DJ all around Boston, and I produce music. It's been my passion since I was a kid. I also work with them exclusively, playing a lot of their shows.
We always say it's amazing that we have to have our own job and we can do what we want, which is amazing. We do what we love, but we work all the time. It's I get to set my own hours and don't have to wake up to do 9 to 5, but I have to respond to my email 24/7 or I won't succeed. Because everybody we're working with in the music industry is organizing also a lot and so many projects going on, it's staying organized and really, that's where the spreadsheets and the documentation comes in. Is having everything on paper, whether it ranging to ideas to your contracts to whatever.
And none of that even begins to touch on the website. The website's an entire project of its own. Ranging from Will setting up systems for how event researchers should be looking up events and putting them in databases and then uploading them to the website, to making sure articles are working and dealing with Laura who manages all the writers and making sure that
content's flowing,
content's flowing, that writers have articles happening, that once they get sent in, that they get edited and that they get posted and then that they can flow on to social media. And when it comes down to situations where we're not personally invested in everything, how do you make sure that your standard is still being upheld? It's a really hard thing. It's honestly probably the hardest thing as you expand.
Now we have more systems in place to promote shows. In the past, we were doing so few of them that all of our attention was on them, that we personally helped organize every aspect of it. But now, because we're involved in so many shows and supporting shows and helping produce shows, manage shows, we have systems in place. In the past, it was just Ab and I doing everything, and now we have Andy who's running street teams, and now Andy manages market managers who manage the different street teams in each of the cities. So it's like an entire system has been built around these shows, and now when a show gets announced, there's just a system in place that, you know, gets the word out.
Oh wow, looks like they're setting up for a show or something. Stage over there. Welcome to the Mullen Center. So at the end of August, like leading into fall, there were a bunch of overdoses in the Northeast. There was the overdoses at Electric Zoo, which were super publicized. There was a death in Boston at a Zed show. And there was like just this surge of scrutiny on the dance music scene, and this certain level of paranoia in regards to illicit like substances and drug use and whatnot, and this very strong push from media that just jumped at this opportunity to talk about a drug craze.
Our community only exists where the music is happening. That is where people meet, make friends. That's where Mass EDMC is happening, at these shows. And you know, if these shows aren't happening in the Pioneer Valley, then a lot of ways Mass EDMC isn't happening, because people aren't going to the shows, they aren't making friends, they're not having an amazing time, they're not listening to electronic music as much. You know, I think just by nature of the shows not happening in the Mullen Center, that less people on campus are hyped up about electronic music, or they feel discouraged. And you know, there's no outlet for people to go let loose at electronic music shows.
If you don't have an open mind about it and you don't know what you're getting yourself into, it can be a negative thing. Not to say that if you don't know an artist, you shouldn't go to their show. More that if you think that electronic music is just about lasers and progressive house and huge builds and crazy drops and like being super fucked up and doing all these things, it's not that at all, really. I think the downsides, or the way to go to a show, is to have an open mind and be ready for an experience and be ready to communicate with people in a way that you don't really in day-to-day life.
When towards the end of our parties at Divas, so like my senior year, so 2010 going into 2011, I met this kid Bobby at one of our parties at Divas. I think he like won a costume contest, and then like we didn't do that well at night, so we like weren't gonna pay him for the costume contest, and he got kind of mad and called me on it.
Ab and I consider Bobby to be the most influential person in our lives that's ever existed. And essentially, he was our promotional director, but he was more than that. He was our mentor. He really taught me everything that I know.
When I graduated and we had our first big show here, we had Tiesto here. It was the first show that we did with NV Concepts. It was the first really large-scale electronic show that ever come to UMass. I remember being here with Bobby, kind of in the trench here, and we were just talking about just how massive this is getting and how important this is, because you know, you look out on a crowd. We kind of went to the top of the stairs way over there and like kind of looked down on the crowd, and watching that many people do that together and connect in that way was just something bigger than I had ever seen before. And I was just like, you know, I don't really understand what's happening there entirely, but I feel that it's monumental. I know it's important, and I need to chase that, and I need to find out what it is, and I need to keep on making it happen, you know. And I remember Bobby and I had both here and, you know, all car rides, driving to shows, at home, you know, whatever. So many conversations about how important dance music is and how important music is in general for the human condition, and how now more than ever, when we know the world is not right, that dance music is one of I mean, many things that can really bring people together and bridge some differences and maybe put some good into the world. And it was always a really exciting thing that we were working on. And then a month after, or even less than a month after the Tiesto show here, Bobby passed in a car accident on the way back from a Deadmau5 show. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about how my life was going to go, what I was going to do, who I was going to share a car with, you know, whatever, everything kind of just stopped. And I remember the night of the accident going to his vigil at ATG, and there were hundreds of people there on like a few hours notice. And I remember thinking, like, you know, would this be the case for me? But I remember very distinctly thinking, you know,
do I impact people in the same way that he did? Because every person that was at this vigil, any person that you ever speak to about Bobby would be like, I always left with a future plan. Bobby always made me think the best of myself, always made me want to be more, always made me come out of my shell, was always smiling.
It's almost one of those things you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And once he was gone, it was just like, wow, what he did for Mass EDMC and for all of us as people, for our lives. It brought Adam and I together. It brought Mass EDMC together as a whole. And, it taught us the most important thing, that you only live once.
I think that electronic music and the scene and the experience of going to these parties, these festivals, these experiences, I think that they're therapeutic in that they connect people with one another. I think in the way that the system pushes us, whether it be with school, whether it be once you're out of school and your daily hustle of work, and that you get lost. It's like you get lost in this all these forces pushing you around and things you have to do, and everybody's just trying to survive. When you go into these environments where there is just this air of inclusion, this just like come and be whoever you want to be, I think that is really powerful for people in terms of learning how to be themselves, in terms of letting their true selves out, and then the music itself, obviously, just like melting everything away. It's just like you don't. Like I said before, when I walk into a room and there's a bunch of other people smiling and radiating like positivity and excited about the night and excited about the sound and just moving however they feel like, without worried about whether they're gonna look weird or whether somebody's gonna judge them or whether they're dressed the wrong way. Everybody just feels how they want to feel. When I start dancing, when I feel the music hit me, like it all melts away. All my problems melt away. Anything I was thinking about goes away. I'm just there, kind of suspended in it. And when you come back, you feel kind of clean, you feel free. And I think that's really powerful.
Hustlers.